Hey everyone, it is your host Zenith. Today, once again, I am doing another video of walks and talks in nature, between nature and spirituality. Today, I am walking along this largely deserted beach. I done a short there the other day, but I didn't really have the battery power to do a kind of longer walk, so today I thought I'd come out while the weather's still really nice and try and gather my thoughts on what it is about water and sea that draws us and attracts us as human beings on so many different levels. As you can see here, this beach is a very large beach, and the tide is somewhat out at this, as you can see. Looking back at the shore, and then looking kind of down to how far the tide is out. It's quite an expansive beach, isn't it? Really good privacy here, but so we able to do this largely uninterrupted today. And I guess in some ways it's a kind of no-brainer really. Look, we all love the beach, don't we? We all love the seaside. We all love the sea. Especially for those of us who don't have ready access to it, who don't really live, close by. It can be a bit of a treat, especially on a lovely, sunny, warm day. When you get there and you kind of put up your chair, your deck chair, or just go for a nice walk. There's just something about the element of water that attracts us in ways that other elements don't. And I've kind of done talks in forests and stuff like that, and certainly been around mountaintops and areas like that, elevated heights. But I guess you're kind of still surrounded by earth and water, especially the sea is completely different. It's just this vast expanse of blueness, if you will, that obviously is very different in every which way to a walk, I guess, in a forest. And it provides different aspects. It brings different qualities to us that a walk alongside a mountain or forest doesn't. I guess the biggest thing is you can get wet. But there's so much about the water and the sea, that attracts us, and I guess we should kind of start with the very physical aspects of that, and why so many people are drawn to the beach and to the sea. Well, obviously, you're very much alone when you look at a beach, when you look at a sea. You can just plop your deck chair or your blanket or take a stroll along. There's nothing to impede you. There's nothing to hinder you. You're not swatting branches out of the road. If you're lucky enough to get to a beach like this, then you've plenty of wide open space, to walk along or to sit along. You're not overcrowded here. There's no shade, surrounding you. So especially if it's a lovely sunny day, then you can take in those that sunshine, which is so beneficial to us in so many ways. Unimpeded, uninterrupted, I guess. And getting really close to the shore here. I don't want it to get too noisy, so although I'd kind of love to go down there. I might do that towards the end of the talk. But anyway, yeah, so you can just kind of sit there. amongst golden sands and or even just sand. Might not necessarily be golden, might be black, and absorb the sounds of the sea, the noise of the water, the smell of the ocean air. When you hear those waves coming in and crashing, maybe the sounds of seagulls. It's the ebb and flow of the water, the noise of the waves and the tide as it crashes alongside the shore, that touches us in so many different levels. This is why we find so much relaxing music that incorporates the sounds of the sea, on platforms like YouTube and the like, on CDs that are designed for healing, relaxation. So you've obviously got a visual element. When you're looking around, you've got an audio element when you hear those sounds, and you've also got the feel of the elements on your skin, whether it's water, whether it's maybe a bit of a wind, provides a bit of a cooling breeze, or just the sun. If you're just sitting there and taking in the rays of the sun. So you've got that on a very physical level, but it also has been proven that the elements that are within the water, that are within sea air, are a very healing effect. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of evidence that was completely ignored to suggest that, far from being locked down over the pandemic that we faced for the past few years, that being alongside the sea and taking long walks along the sea could provide a lot of healing elements and to help aid and recover from this virus that we faced. We have vitamin D that comes from the sun, and we have all sorts of chemicals and properties that come from the water itself. Never mind the mental effects, the mental healing qualities that come from water and come from taking nice walks along the sea. So you've got kind of all that going on, but people come here early in the morning as well, and people come here late at night to see the sunset or the sunrise, or just to be alone, to walk their dog or cycle, or people come here on horses or whatever the case may be for a quick swim. So you've got that, you've got that solitude as well. You've got this wide open expanse, with literally nothing around. You can kind of see in all directions, and people take great comfort in that. People find that to be a great comforter. You can kind of be alone with your thoughts. You can contemplate with nothing but the sound of the sea and maybe the gulls in the background. So obviously you've got the beauty, of the natural sea. You've got, as I said, these contrasting, beautiful colours. If you're walking along a beach, you can see, not always, but really clear blue waters and golden sand, I suppose, is everybody's idyllic view of a sea. But even if you don't have that, there's still so much to take in. The fact that you're on sand and the fact that there's water there is still pretty much enough for most people. So there's a very healing qualities and modalities to the sea and to, kind of walks along this kind of barren, if you like, landscape. But it's not without features. There is plenty, as I said, to look at and plenty to admire, and plenty to take in with your senses. But I guess it's just this kind of sense of, maybe not quite isolation is the right word, but certainly this feeling of just being kind of alone, along a terrain like this here, where you're maybe not so much distracted by foliage or trees, or it's you're not having a strenuous walk, maybe up and down hills and paths and stuff like that. There's no kind of real insects, flies and whatever else that you might find in there that potentially, that would bother you. So there's quite a lot to be said for the sea and for the ocean. That regardless of whether you're spiritual or whether you're not, works for some people on so many different levels. But to kind of take it a bit deeper than that, there's a lot of people will just never really question, the deeper aspects of what the water or what the sea does or what the ocean does, and they kind of look at it from a kind of spiritual aspect. There's quite a lot going on, that we never really think about. I guess the water itself is a very of the elements. Water is associated with femininity. Water is a very feminine element. It is almost sacred in a way. Water makes up 70% of our body, so in that regards we feel that affinity. But water itself, or as I said, is a spiritual element, and it helps us and it reminds us of our spiritual nature, because the physical universe that we live in and we are made of is kind of regarded as a masculine element, whereas the non-material or metaphysical aspect of our reality is feminine. And this is why I think I've talked about this before. We have this concept of women's intuition, and why we see so many or the female gender of the population dominates so much mind, body, spirit talks and workshops and events and stuff like that, because obviously they have this large connection to the non-material world. So we have that going on too. But also, I mentioned there about water, our bodies being 70% of water, but even before that we are born, we are in the womb, and we're surrounded by water, we're surrounded by liquid. And so being at the sea is also a reminder and a remembrance of what it was like to be an infant in the womb, or an embryo, if you like, in the womb. And it really does work on a subconscious level. And I guess, maybe you're sitting wondering why this is important, or how can this, thing. But as I said, it's on a subconscious level. It's a reminder that you were, innocent then, that you were untouched by the world. You were safe and secure in the Great Mother, or your mother's stomach, which is representative of the Great Mother, or the Mother Earth, when you were safe, free from harm, when you didn't have to enter into this sometimes confusing and world full of trauma. And a lot of us long to be back in that womb again, to be, safe and protected, where all our troubles and our worries are away, that we have someone else to look out for us, and we can return to that kind of innocence and that kind of, unthinking, unfeeling stage of our birth, of our lives. So water is a reminder of being in the womb. Consciously or unconsciously, people are drawn to it on that level and that aspect. I also think that when we look at water, and largely we look at the colours, especially with this water here. It's not crystal blue, but certainly there's a blue element to it. And obviously you see the white of the waves, the crests, and blue in a lot of cultures and a lot of religions is associated with it's a very spiritual colour. it's a very it's regarded as heavenly. It's regarded as pure. You know, when most religious figures or deities will have some aspect of blue about them. You know, go and look up paintings or images or statues or whatever. Certainly in Christianity, and I would say Islam or as well, that the colour blue dominates. A lot of our so-called saints and so-called religious icons. As I said, it's considered a very spiritual element, a very religious element, and once again, this is why water and certainly the blue waters draw so much, because it reminds us of being pure. And as I said, with the white crest of the wave, you know, it works on a subconscious level to remind us of our spiritual nature, or you know, to give us subconsciously images of you know, really deep kind of religious figures and religious icons. And just trying to find another nice spot here. Hope this wind isn't really going to ruin this video, because it's so nice walking along in these shallow waters. I may actually have to get out of it, because I don't want anybody just to hear the sounds of my feet. So there's as I said, once again, there's a lot going on. You know, whether you consciously realise it or don't consciously realise it, I think most people generally don't think that deeply about why it is that water attracts us. But there's more to it, I guess, than that. I think we also, water is subject to the moon, and the moon affects the tides, you know, the ebb and flow of the tides, and obviously we are affected by the moon. We are drawn to the moon. The moon pulls at us. In astrological terms, we set our intentions by the full moon. You know, we pay attention to eclipses. We look out for instances of rare moons, like blood moons or wolf moons or blue moons or whatever. So, a bit like water, we are drawn to the moon, and we too feel the pull we too feel the pull of the moon, as it has, you know, pulls on our emotions. We too have ebbs and flows in our lives, in our emotions, in our mental processes. And I guess being by the water and seeing the ebb and flow of the water, of the tide, reminds us once again of the ebb and flow of our life, of our high points and our low points, of our crests and peaks and our just, I guess, our low points, I suppose. So, and I guess as well, you know, one thing I kind of forgotten there, one thing I kind of remembered, which ties into this aspect of, you know, of spirituality, of religiousness, of, you know, the qualities of water, the colours, is that water is regarded as a cleansing agent, you know, a cleansing element that we can safely utilise and not get physically damaged by it. You know, water has that aspect of it that is the same as fire. Fire is seen as a destructor, but also seen as a cleansing, clearing out old growth or old, you know, things that no longer serve us, or just making way for new growth. So fire can be an element of rebirth, but obviously we can't bathe in fire. We can't cleanse ourselves with fire, and so water is a cleanser too. And water is something that we can safely use in many cultures and many religions around the world. Use water as a purifier. Certainly within Christianity, we see water being used to baptize children who are now have been anointed or baptized into, the Christian faith. When we look throughout history, we see how baptism was used for Jesus. The man who was Jesus was asked to be baptized. Of course, this predated Christianity because Jesus wasn't a Christian. And I guess I'm not 100% sure because I'm not a scholar, I don't need to be a scholar, but obviously, as there was no Christianity there, I have to assume that Jesus was baptized into potentially the Jewish faith because he grew up Jewish, and I guess the person who baptized him, John the Baptist, would have been of some sort of Jewish persuasion. As I said, I'm not a scholar. I don't research any of these. I just share my own thoughts and opinions. Anyway, so yes, on a religious level, on a spiritual level, water is a purifier, water is a cleanser. It feels that we have been cleansed of our impurities on a spiritual level, but also on a physical level as well. We shower daily. Well, we don't shower daily, but we shower and we bathe, and especially the act of bathing. It's seen as something that is something to be savoured, something to relax upon. And we make big deals of our bathing habits or our baths. Sometimes we fill up a bath with nice warm water. We put in suds or soap or bubble bath. We light candles around the bath. We make it this ritual, I guess. Guess that's the word I'm looking for. It's what we're doing when we're doing that. There is we're conducting a ritual, in the same way that we're conducting a magic ritual. Running a bath and setting up scents and aromas and candles is the same as a ritual, and we're immersing ourselves in water. Yet again, we're cleansing our impurities. I don't actually like this aspect of the beach with all this thing, but I don't want to get too far in because the noise will, unless I kind of maybe just walk backwards. So yeah, even the very act that I'm kind of doing now by walking in this water is an act of purification. I'm not intentionally doing it, but it certainly still works on a physical and a metaphysical level. And I guess that's what we're doing. We're cleansing away our impurities once we shower, once we bathe, once we wash in water. We're getting rid of the day's dirt or any impurities that we've gathered up in ourselves. And washing in water, provides healing. It provides rejuvenation. It removes all of the dead skin, the dead cells that we have and we feel so much better about it. Also, I guess, largely, unlike walking in a woods or walking in along a mountaintop, we, especially when we come to sand and we come to water, for practical purposes as well, we remove our socks and we remove our shoes because of sand and how easy it is to get into our footwear and into our socks. But also if we want to feel the sand between our feet, if we want to feel the water, then we take off our footwear. And then by doing this here, we're reconnecting with the earth again. We're reconnecting with our natural environment. Too often, and most of the time, most of us are wearing rubberized footwear. The soles of our feet are rubberized. With our trainers or our footwear, you know, a large part of our footwear is made up of rubberized soles, and rubber is an insulator. Rubber, this is why we see tools, garden tools and working tools, amongst other things. They generally have rubber handles or rubber tops, and that's to protect you from, you know, if you're, especially if you're working in anything electrical, to protect you from shock. You know, if that electrical current, you know, makes contact with the metal element of the tool that you're using, then rubber is, as I said, an insulator which helps prevent you from electric shock. And so in this way, our rubberized footwear works in the same way. We're not actually making contact with the energies of the earth. You know, we're insulating ourselves from them. When was the last time that your bare feet, you know, touched the earth or touched the ground? When you had a walk along the natural elements of the earth, when was the last time that you walked in your garden barefoot, or walked along a field barefoot, or took a walk for a short period of time and took off your footwear and let your feet actually make contact with the earth? We tend to not do that. We imagine very few of us do it. I try to do it as often as I can, obviously when the weather's good, you know, and the terrain permitting. So the most time, or really generally the only time that most of us get to expose our feet to the earth, to the natural ground, is when we're at the beach. And the earth itself is constantly emitting energies. Constantly emitting energy. And the best way in our spiritual practices, through meditation, through various disciplines, trying to, you know, raise our vibration, we draw upon the energies of the earth. And we do that by visualizing drawing up drawing up energy from the earth. But it is much more effective when you do that, when your actual feet, even if you're just in your kind of socks, when your actual feet are touching the actual earth itself. So there's that aspect of it, and let me just get ready here. It's not particularly practical. There's also that aspect of it. And what we're doing is that also we are earthing ourselves in the same way. When we have an electrical appliance and we have an earth wire in it, it means that if it gets overloaded with electricity, then that electricity gets safely earthed into the ground. So what we're doing then is we're also earthing ourselves, where we are making contact with the earth itself, and that can help us remain grounded. It can help us remove any kind of negative emotions or any thoughts or out of balances or ego and things like that. We can safely discharge them into the earth. So once again, that's another reason why we feel so much more at home in the sea, because we're making contact again with not only the sand and the earth, but also we are purifying ourselves in the sea. We're purifying our bodies and our feet. It's just got a little cloudy here and just a little slightly chilly. but still a lovely day, with amazing views. Another aspect of why we're drawn to the sea on a kind of spiritual or metaphysical level is because the sea, when we look at our roads or highways, we can see traffic, we can see buildings, we can see roads. We have largely conquered the surface of the earth. We can build roads through forests, we can build roads through mountains. We have dug up vast portions of our ground, of our earth, and to create cities and structures and communities, and to dig up the resources. We have the technology and the machinery to do that. We have bombs that dynamite and blow up sections of the earth. So humanity has, it could be said, conquered large portions of the earth. Even in the sky, we can fly all over the world through our airplanes. We dominate the skies. When we look at, have you ever kind of looked at maybe or done some sort of internet search, to show you maybe the flight of 1 day's worth of planes, and how they crisscross the world? You'll see how what's the word I'm looking for? You'll see how much we actually dominate the sky. We crisscross the world. You'll see lines from every country in the world almost. That our planes take off and land from and divert from. So we have largely dominated the skies as well. So the attraction of the ocean is that the ocean still represents the unknown. We can cross the surface of the ocean, but something like 90%, if not more, of our ocean's depths are still unexplored. They're still unknown to us. We cannot, still in the age of 2022, as far as I'm aware, get to the very deepest parts of our ocean. We have no craft, well, no kind of publicly made craft that has charted those depths due to the great pressures that the waters exert upon our current craft that we use, our submarines, our submersibles, our whatever it is. And so the depths of the ocean represent a great mystery to us. It represents, one of the last great frontiers to be explored, to be charted. We see so many films that that speak to this, that call us about this. We see films where we see tales of mermaids and disappearing into the ocean, or vast underground cities, or maybe even like alien type of beings that remain unknown to us. We think of James Cameron's, not Avatar, The Abyss, in which I think it was like a submarine or something, got damaged when it was underwater, and it began falling down this trench, this undersea trench, and it didn't seem as if there was any hope for the occupants of that submarine, because of the massive weight, and no one had ever survived and they wouldn't get back up. But at that depth they began to encounter these beings, and so it's so dark down there. There's so many strange species that we have only just sort of captured on film, and there's so much that still remains unknown to us. So it represents this great unknown, this great mystery. it also represents it when we see, tales and stories and films of things, as I said, living in the ocean, disappearing from sight. It represents a hidden world to us. It represents, for me anyway, it represents almost an escape, escape from the above world. It represents that mystery. It represents some place in which most people have no access to. It represents an escape, I guess, if you like. So when we look out at the ocean and we swim in the ocean, it reminds us of that. And I guess also as well, this kind of feeds into like nature documentaries and some stuff, stuff like that. There is when we see, scenes being filmed underwater. There's this kind of noiseless, timeless quality of it. Everything is slowed away down. Everything is largely silent. And again, that represents, it draws us subconsciously to a time before, we were born in the womb, yet again. But it also represents what we think of as being some sort of afterlife, this life in a kind of very idyllic, slowed down manner, where everything flows and is in harmony with one another. Especially when we see things like coral reefs, we see the beauty of that underwater world. We see the myriad of colours of all of these tropical fish and the colours of the coral and the aquatic plants that are under there as they move slowly from side to side and move with the current. And it just represents this natural state of being, this natural way of living that we have removed from in our 22nd century, in our fast-paced life. So it represents an idyllic way of living. It represents a way of being that seems to be a kind of paradise. It seems to represent a heaven on earth, or a heaven under earth. It's something that a lot of us imagine to be would be our next existence. In these higher kind of realms, in your whatever your terminology of it is, your paradise, your Eden, your heaven, your Shambhala, your Shangri-La, whatever the case may be, your afterlife. Where everything's just floating and everything's blue and everything's in harmony with one another. So it draws us on that level too. And I guess I think that's me near done on this kind of subject. I guess when we look out at the ocean, we see no end to it. Yes, we know that at some point, further than our eyes can see, there is something out there. But I guess to people throughout our history, it represented the great unknown. That this is why so many people were drawn through the sea and to explore these great unknown, depths and vastness. And it's a place where the sky meets the ocean. That horizon that we see represents symbolically our death, our transition between two worlds. If you kind of look at it that way, it represents the leaving behind of our mortal remains and our ascension into our larger life, our spiritual kind of life. As above, so below is the what do you call it, not the law, but the principle of correspondence, which is a very universal law, as told in the Kabbalion, the book of the Kabbalion. And this is our transition from the earthly life to the high spiritual life. And just at that point on the horizon where you see that the sky and the sea meet is that exact transition between the physical and the spiritual. So it represents that in a way too. And so when we're at the beach and when we're at the sea, we cannot help but subconsciously on some level reflect upon our death and our rebirth into, from one life to another. And as I said, there's a great mystery to the ocean. There's a great mystery. When we look out, we cannot see, we cannot readily travel, out there. And even when we're on a boat and we're traversing the ocean, it's still largely a mystery because there are no familiar signposts, there are no familiar landmarks. Everything is just this vast, unchanging landscape. So it's a great mystery, and again, it represents the mystery of death. It represents the mystery of what lies beyond, which has captivated us and, fired our imaginations since time immemorial. What lies beyond? So we ponder the bigger questions in life. We think about what happens after death, what awaits us. And we have invented all sorts of films and scenarios and books and all that sort of stuff. And I guess in today's age, we have largely, in this spiritual age, we have largely a great understanding of what lies beyond. But still, even at that, it's not something that we truly know. It still remains a mystery to us, even if we've had so many communications from those who have passed on to the larger life, through what we would call, mediumship and psychic, and people who have come back to tell us, and visitations and apparitions and channelings from beings who occupy those higher dimensions, who are able to tell us, that we continue. And we've had people who have been regressed and remembered their life between lives. So we've had so much information available to us today in regards to what happens when we leave this physical body, but it still remains such a mystery to us. We have no pictures. We have, we're very visual creatures. This is half the problem with our world, our state of consciousness, is that it's still dominated by our five senses. If we can't see it, if we can't feel it, touch it, experience it in some way, then it still remains to us as out of our grasp, as imaginary. And so, because we have no television pictures, because we have no paintings, we still kind of doubt its reality. We still have a hard time accepting or visualizing, these great things. And so it remains a great mystery to us, and that's exactly the way it's meant to be. It's meant to remain a mystery to the humans, to the human experience, because it gets us to think, it gets us to contemplate, it gets us to start thinking in a kind of spiritual manner. It gets us to dwell upon our origins and our deaths. And this is what it's meant to be. It causes us to seek. It causes us to want to grow. When we think of, is this afterlife for everyone? And our religious institutions, unfortunately, have become quite muddled and removed from the original sources of transmission, in which these teachings were originally taught, and are now not particularly teaching the right way of things. We've so many what would you want to say, caveats or qualifications that we potentially need to meet if we want to go to this afterlife. And so it causes then people to think, it causes, and I suppose in a good way, people to try and change and to, want to live a more humane life in which they treat everyone equally. And while that is obviously what we desire in our society. It should not come under. It should be done freely. It should be done because you want to do it, not out of fear, not out of some fear that if you don't lead this life, then when you pass on, that you will not get into this kind of paradise. So if it's not done freely, if it's not done through your own kind of free will, through your own what your heart tells you, then it's lacking in some way. And so, as I said, but once we're at the sea, these feelings, these questions arise in us, either consciously or subconsciously, and so there's probably a lot more I could talk about the water and the element of water. The water, I guess, is a great portal as well. Water, if you kind of look it up or if you know anything about it, is known as a portal for various types of beings to travel in. Water is affected by your thoughts. There have been so many experiments, that have shown that your intentions change the way water crystals are formed. And there have been a number of experiments showing, that by either projecting loving, happy thoughts towards a glass of water and then freezing it, and then analysing the crystalline structure of the ice of the snow, produces different effects from intentions sent to water that are of a negative, heating kind of nature. So water is very, very remarkable in that way, and obviously, it sustains us. We could not survive without water. It's a portal. It is said that water is obviously a healing quality. We immerse ourselves in water. We have hydrotherapy. We bathe in water. We take ice baths in water, and to rejuvenate ourselves. And also, you can ask, you can call upon those higher beings that we have deemed to be angels or jinns or fairies or elementals, to come in and assist you in healing, and to come in and charge the water with light, with their spiritual energy to help heal you. And so water actually is completely amazing, and there's so much to water that we completely take for granted, and it kind of goes unnoticed. But I hope that this little video beside water has kind of given you this food for thought, and this new appreciation and newfound appreciation of water. I have certainly enjoyed being here in the water and just walking along it and being, immersed in it, and on a nice kind of warm day. It feels pleasant, it feels natural, it feels refreshing. So I've been to Zenith, and this is my walk and talk in nature at this time. It is about water, and perhaps when I think of some more things to say about water,